Is this how you butter bread? Look at this mess. Can't you do something as simple as spreading butter properly?
It was just bread. Just a Monday morning. But by Friday, his wife was gone. What happened in those 4 days? Stay tuned to find out how the smallest argument became the biggest regret of Daniel's life. This is a true story, and it will change how you treat the people you love. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen window of a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Surulere, Lagos. The smell of freshly brewed tea filled the air as Sarah Williams hummed softly, spreading butter on slices of bread. At 32, she was the kind of woman who found joy in small morning rituals, even on busy workdays. Her husband Daniel entered, already dressed in his office shirt and trousers. At 35, he worked as an accountant at a firm in Victoria Island. He was a good man most days. But on this particular Monday morning, something inside him was already irritated before he even sat down. Maybe it was the traffic he knew he would face. Maybe it was stress from work deadlines. Or maybe it was just one of those mornings where everything felt wrong. He sat at the small dining table and looked at the plate Sarah placed before him. The butter on the bread was spread unevenly, with thick clumps in some places and bare spots in others. It was a small thing. A nothing thing. But in that moment, it became everything. "Is this how you butter bread?" Daniel said, his voice sharp and cold. "Look at this mess. Can't you do something as simple as spreading butter properly?" Sarah froze, the butter knife still in her hand. She turned to look at her husband, confusion and hurt washing over her face. "Daniel, what?" "Don't what me?" he interrupted. "I work hard every day, and I can't even get a decent breakfast. This looks like a child did it." The words hung in the air like poison. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not over bread, not over butter. But it wasn't really about the bread, was it? It was about the tone, the contempt, the way he made her feel small over something so trivial. Without a word, Sarah set down the knife and walked away from the table. She grabbed her handbag from the chair, picked up her lunch container from the counter, and headed for the door. "Sarah, where are you going?" Daniel called out, but his voice still carried that edge of annoyance. She didn't answer. She didn't say goodbye. She just left, closing the door quietly behind her. Daniel sat alone at the table, staring at the bread. For a moment, a small voice in his head whispered that he had been too harsh. But pride is a powerful thing. It whispered louder, telling him he was right to correct her, that she was being too sensitive, that she should be the one to apologize. He ate the bread anyway, every last bite, and left for work without a second thought. Sarah sat at her desk at the primary school where she taught, but she couldn't focus on the students' exercise books she was supposed to be marking. Her mind kept replaying the morning scene. It wasn't the first time Daniel had spoken to her harshly, but it hurt every time. She wondered when he had become this person, when small mistakes had started to feel like crimes in their home. Her colleague, Grace, noticed her distraction. "Sister Sarah, are you okay? You've been staring at that page for 10 minutes. Sarah forced a smile. "I'm fine, Grace. Just tired." But she wasn't fine. She was hurt, and she was angry, and she was wondering if her husband even realized how his words cut her. Meanwhile, across the city in his air-conditioned office, Daniel was deep in spreadsheets and financial reports. He had completely forgotten about the morning argument. Or rather, he had pushed it aside as unimportant. These things happened in marriages, he told himself. She would get over it. They arrived home within minutes of each other, both exhausted from Lagos traffic and long workdays. Sarah came in first and went straight to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Daniel entered shortly after, loosened his tie, and sat in the living room without greeting her. The silence in the apartment was thick and uncomfortable. Sarah cooked jollof rice and fried plantain, Daniel's favorite meal. She wanted to break the silence, wanted him to apologize, wanted things to go back to normal. But she also wanted him to realize what he had done without her having to beg for an apology. They ate at different times. Sarah ate in the kitchen while the food was still hot. Daniel waited until she had finished and gone to the bedroom before he came to serve himself. He ate alone in the living room, watching the news with the volume low. That night, they went to bed in the same room but on opposite sides of the mattress, a cold space between them that felt wider than the Atlantic Ocean. Tuesday morning came. They got ready for work in silence, moving around each other like strangers in a shared space. Sarah made breakfast, but Daniel ate quickly and left without a word. Tuesday evening was the same. They came home, ate separately, and went to bed without speaking. Wednesday was identical. The silence had become a third presence in their home, heavy and suffocating. Sarah's hurt had turned to frustration. Daniel's stubbornness had hardened into pride. Both of them were waiting for the other to break first, neither willing to be the one to give in. Sarah's mother called Wednesday evening while Sarah was washing dishes. "My daughter, how are you?" "How is Daniel?" "We're fine, Mama." Sarah lied, her voice tight. "You don't sound fine. What's wrong?" "Nothing, Mama. Just work stress." But her mother knew her too well. "Sarah, don't let small things become big things in your marriage. Pride is a dangerous thing. Talk to your husband." After hanging up, Sarah stared at the phone in her hand. Her mother was right. This fight was stupid. It was about butter on bread, for heaven's sake. But every time she thought about approaching Daniel, she remembered the harshness in his voice, and her resolve would harden again. Thursday evening, Sarah decided enough was enough. This silent treatment was killing her inside, and she missed her husband. She missed talking to him, laughing with him, sharing her day with him. She decided she would be the bigger person. She prepared dinner with extra care that night, making Daniel's favorite pepper soup with plenty of goat meat. As they sat down to eat, Sarah took a deep breath and spoke for the first time in days. "Hi," she said softly, looking at Daniel across the table. It was such a simple word, just 2 letters. But it carried the weight of an olive branch, an attempt at peace, a willingness to end this foolish war. Daniel heard her. He looked up from his plate and saw her face, hopeful and vulnerable. For a split second, he wanted to respond. He wanted to say hi back, to reach across the table and take her hand, to apologize for being harsh about something as silly as buttered bread. But pride grabbed him by the throat. His mind raced with justifications. She's only saying hi now? After 3 days? She should apologize properly. She started this by walking out. "I'm not going to make it easy for her. If this fight is going to end, she needs to apologize first. Not me. I won't let her think she can just say one word and everything is fine." So Daniel did nothing. He continued eating, looking down at his food, and ignored her completely. Sarah's hopeful expression crumbled. She had extended an olive branch, and he had snapped it in half. The rejection hurt worse than the original argument. At least then, he had been angry. Now he was just cold, deliberately shutting her out. She finished her meal in silence, cleared her plate, and left the table. But as she walked past him to the kitchen, she smiled softly at him. It was a sad smile, tinged with disappointment, but also with love, because despite everything, she still loved this stubborn man. Daniel saw the smile from the corner of his eye. Sarah was a beautiful woman, and her smile had always been his weakness. It was the smile that made him fall in love with her 7 years ago. It was the smile that brightened his worst days. It was the smile that could soften any anger in his heart. But tonight, he fought against its power. He told himself, "Don't give in. Don't let her beauty make you forget that she needs to apologize properly. Stay strong. Don't be weak." So he stood up and left the table without a word, walking to the bedroom to prepare for bed. Sarah went to the bathroom to take her evening shower. As the water ran over her, she began to sing their favorite song, "The Way You Make Me Feel," by Michael Jackson. It was the song that had been playing at the restaurant where Daniel first told her he loved her. It was the song they had danced to at their wedding. It was their song. Her voice echoed softly through the bathroom door. beautiful and clear despite the pain she felt. If they weren't fighting, Daniel would have joined in, singing his parts loudly and off-key, making her laugh. But tonight, he lay in bed, listening to her sing alone, and his pride prevented him from joining her. "Stay strong," he kept telling himself. "Don't give in. She has to apologize first." When Sarah came out of the bathroom in her nightgown, her skin still damp and smelling of soap, Daniel pretended to be asleep. He heard her moving around the room, heard the sound of her opening her bedside drawer, heard her get into bed beside him. He felt the mattress shift under her weight. They lay there, in the darkness, inches apart, but miles away. Sarah stared at the ceiling for a long time, thinking about their marriage, about love, about pride, about how something so beautiful could become so broken over something so small. She thought about tomorrow, about trying again to make peace, about maybe being the one to apologize, even though she felt she had done nothing wrong. Eventually, sleep found her. Daniel lay awake longer, his pride still firmly in place, telling himself he was right, that tomorrow she would apologize, that everything would be fine. He had no idea that tomorrow would never come. Daniel was deep in sleep when he felt a gentle hand on his shoulder, shaking him softly. His eyes barely opened, still heavy with sleep. He saw Sarah's form beside him in the darkness. Annoyed at being woken, still stubborn from their ongoing fight, he pushed her hand away irritably. "Not now," he mumbled, thinking she just wanted to use the bathroom or something equally unimportant. He turned over and fell back asleep within seconds. What Daniel didn't know, what he couldn't see in the darkness, was that Sarah wasn't trying to get his attention for something trivial. Her chest was tight, her lungs were struggling. She couldn't breathe properly. She needed help. She needed her inhaler from the bathroom cabinet. She needed him. But he had pushed her away. Sarah lay back down, trying to calm herself, trying to breathe slowly and deeply like her doctor had taught her. She had lived with asthma since childhood. She knew the signs of an attack. But sometimes, despite all precautions, attacks came anyway. She tried to get up to get the inhaler herself, but the attack was stronger than usual. Her vision blurred. Her chest felt like it was being crushed. She couldn't call out, couldn't scream for help. Every breath was a struggle, and the struggles were getting weaker. She reached out one more time toward Daniel, her fingers barely grazing his back before her hand fell limply to the bed. And then, in the darkness of that Thursday night, with her husband sleeping inches away from her, Sarah Williams took her last struggling breath and slipped away into silence. Daniel woke up with a start, realizing immediately that he had overslept. The morning sun was already bright through the window. He jumped out of bed in a panic, checking his phone. 7:15 a.m. He was supposed to be at work by 8:30, and with Lagos traffic, he was already going to be late. He rushed through his morning routine, showering quickly, throwing on his clothes, not even taking time to iron his shirt properly. His mind was on work, on the presentation he had at 9 a.m., on what excuse he would give his boss for being late. He went to the kitchen, grabbed 2 slices of bread, and ate them plain without even toasting them, washing them down with water. Still focused on his hurry, still stubborn in his pride, he didn't go back to the bedroom to wake Sarah or say goodbye. He just left, pulling the door closed behind him without locking it properly, and hurried down to the street to catch a bus to work. The workday had been long and stressful. Daniel's presentation had gone poorly because he was flustered from arriving late. His boss had been angry. The whole day felt off, like something was wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it. As the bus dropped him at his street corner and he walked toward his apartment building, he felt an odd sense of dread. The evening air felt heavy, oppressive, like a storm was coming even though the sky was clear. When he reached his front door, his heart skipped a beat. The door was still half open, exactly as he had left it that morning in his rush. He pushed it open slowly. "Sarah?" he called out. No answer. The apartment looked exactly as it had that morning. The breakfast things were still on the kitchen counter, unwashed. Sarah's handbag was on the chair where she always left it. Her shoes were by the door. But there was no sound, no movement, no smell of dinner cooking, No signs of life. A cold fear gripped Daniel's heart. "Sarah!" He called louder, his voice breaking. He ran through the living room and up the small hallway to their bedroom, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. When he pushed open the bedroom door, he saw her. Sarah was lying in bed, in the same position he had left her that morning. She looked peaceful, like she was sleeping, but something was wrong, terribly wrong. "Baby," Daniel whispered, his phone slipping from his trembling hand and clattering to the floor. He rushed to the bed, calling her name over and over. "Sarah! Sarah! Baby! Wake up!" He grabbed her hand and immediately dropped it, gasping. Her skin was cold. Not cool like morning skin, but cold, dead cold. "No, no, no, no," Daniel chanted, climbing onto the bed beside her. He pulled her into his arms, pressing his ear against her chest, desperately listening for a heartbeat, for breathing, for any sign of life. Nothing. Silence. Stillness. "Jesus!" Daniel screamed, the word tearing from his throat like a wounded animal. He clutched Sarah's body to his chest, rocking back and forth, his mind unable to process what was happening. "Please, God, no, please, Sarah, please, wake up, please." But she didn't wake up. She would never wake up again. Daniel felt warmth spreading down his legs and realized with distant shame that he had wet himself in terror. But he didn't care. Nothing mattered except the cold body in his arms that used to be warm, used to smile, used to sing their song. He sobbed uncontrollably, his whole body shaking, holding his wife and begging her to come back, begging God to turn back time, begging the universe to let this be a nightmare he could wake up from. But it wasn't a nightmare. It was reality. His wife was dead, and he hadn't even known. The paramedics came. Daniel had no memory of calling them, but someone must have. Maybe him, maybe a neighbor who heard his screams. They moved around the bedroom with professional efficiency, checking for vital signs, even though it was clearly too late. "I'm sorry, sir," one of them said gently. "She's been gone for several hours, probably since early this morning." "No," Daniel whispered. "No, that's impossible. I was here. I was right here next to her. I would have known." But even as he said it, the truth was crashing down on him like a building collapsing. The moment at 3 a.m. when she had touched his shoulder, when he had pushed her hand away, when he had been too proud, too stubborn, too stupid to wake up properly and ask what she needed. At the hospital, a doctor looked at Daniel with sympathy. "Your wife had a severe asthma attack. Do you know where her inhaler is?" "In the bathroom cabinet," Daniel said numbly. "It's always in the bathroom cabinet." The doctor nodded sadly. Asthma attacks can be fatal if not treated immediately. She needed her medication urgently. "Did she try to wake you?" And that's when Daniel broke completely. He collapsed in the hospital corridor, sobbing so hard he couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't function, because he remembered. He remembered her hand on his shoulder at 3 a.m. He remembered pushing her away. He remembered choosing sleep over responding to his wife. She had been dying right next to him, struggling for breath, desperately needing help, and he had pushed her away because of his stupid, foolish, deadly pride. The small church in their neighborhood was packed with people. Sarah's family, her teaching colleagues, her students' parents, friends from church, neighbors, everyone who had known her kind, smile, and gentle spirit. Daniel sat in the front row, dressed in black, staring at the white casket that held his wife's body. He hadn't cried since that first night. He couldn't cry. He couldn't laugh. He couldn't feel anything except a vast, empty numbness that had swallowed him whole. Sarah's mother, Mrs. Grace Okonkwo, sat beside him, crying softly. She had aged 10 years in 1 week. She kept reaching over to pat Daniel's hand, trying to comfort him even in her own grief, because she was that kind of woman, like her daughter had been. The pastor spoke about Sarah's life, about her love for teaching children, about her dedication to her church community, about her beautiful smile. Everyone had a story about Sarah's kindness. Everyone except Daniel. He couldn't speak. When they asked if he wanted to say something, he just shook his head. What could he say? I killed my wife with my pride? She died trying to get my help and I ignored her? Our last conversation was me insulting her butter-spreading skills? As they lowered the casket into the ground, Daniel felt like he was being buried too. The part of him that could feel joy, that could hope, that could live, was going into that grave with Sarah. Daniel sat in the dark living room of their apartment, the same apartment that used to be filled with Sarah's humming, her laughter, her presence. Now it was just silent and empty, a tomb for the living. He hadn't gone back to work. He had stopped answering phone calls. He barely ate. He just sat in the darkness, replaying that Monday morning over and over in his mind. If he hadn't commented on the bread, if he had just eaten it and said nothing, if he had been kind instead of harsh, if he had apologized on Monday evening instead of letting pride keep him silent, if he had responded when she said hi on Thursday, if he had joined her when she sang their song, if he had woken up properly when she touched his shoulder at 3 a.m. If, 1,000 ifs that would never change anything. On the coffee table in front of him was a photograph from their wedding day. Sarah in her white dress, smiling that beautiful smile, looking at Daniel like he was her whole world. Daniel in his suit, grinning like the luckiest man alive because she had chosen him. He picked up the photo with shaking hands and pressed it to his chest. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he whispered into the darkness. "I'm so sorry. I was wrong. You were right. The bread didn't matter. My pride didn't matter. Nothing mattered except you, and I threw it all away. I threw us away for nothing." Tears finally came, streaming down his face, soaking his shirt. "I love you," he said to the empty room, to the photograph, to the ghost of the woman he had lost. "I loved you so much, and I never said it enough. I never showed it enough. And now it's too late." He looked around at their home, at the kitchen where she used to cook, at the bedroom doorway where he could almost see her standing, at the dining table where she had said hi, and he had said nothing. "If I could go back," he sobbed, "I would do everything differently. I would eat that bread with a smile. I would apologize immediately. I would never let pride come between us. I would tell you every day how much you meant to me. I would wake up when you touched my shoulder. I would save you." But he couldn't go back. Time only moved forward, carrying him further and further away from his wife, from his happiness, from the life he had destroyed with his own stubbornness. 3 months had passed since Sarah's death. Daniel had returned to work because he had no choice, because bills needed to be paid, and life continued even when you wanted it to stop. But he was a shadow of himself. His colleague Michael noticed his friend's hollow eyes and suggested they get lunch together. "Daniel, you need to talk to someone," Michael said gently as they sat in a small restaurant. "This guilt is eating you alive." "I killed her, Michael," Daniel said flatly. "How do I live with that?" "You didn't kill her. Her asthma killed her. It was a medical emergency." "She tried to wake me for help and I pushed her away," Daniel said, his voice breaking, "because I was too proud to speak to her over a stupid argument about bread. Bread, Michael. My wife died because I was angry about how she spread butter on bread." Michael was quiet for a long moment. "What happened to Sarah was a tragedy. But Daniel, you can't let guilt destroy the rest of your life. She wouldn't want that." "How do you know what she would want?" Daniel snapped. "You didn't know her. You don't know that I spent our last days together being cold to her. You don't know that the last real thing I said to her was cruel." "You're right," Michael said softly. "I didn't know her, but I know you. And the Daniel I know is a good man who made a terrible mistake. A mistake that had terrible consequences. But you can't undo it by destroying yourself." Daniel stared at his untouched food. "Every morning, I wake up, and for a few seconds, I forget. I think she's still there. And then I remember, and it's like she dies all over again. Every single day, I lose her again." "Then maybe," Michael suggested carefully, "instead of losing her every day, You start remembering her. The good things. The love you shared. The 7 years of marriage before that one terrible week. Don't let those last days erase all the beautiful days that came before. Daniel stood at Sarah's grave on the anniversary of her death, a bouquet of roses in his hand. The headstone was simple. Sarah Williams, beloved wife, teacher, friend, 1992 to 2024. Her smile brightened every life she touched. He knelt down and placed the flowers gently on the grass. "Hi, Sarah," he said softly. "I know it's been a while since I visited. I'm sorry about that. I'm trying to do better." He sat down on the ground beside her grave, not caring that his trousers were getting dirty. "I went back to work. I'm seeing a counselor now. She's helping me work through the guilt. It's still there every day, but I'm learning to carry it instead of letting it crush me." A breeze blew through the cemetery, rustling the leaves of the trees overhead. "I started a foundation in your name," Daniel continued. "We provide free inhalers and asthma education to low-income families in Lagos. We've helped over 300 people so far. I thought you'd like that, using our tragedy to help others." He traced her name on the headstone with his finger. "I still hear you singing sometimes. In the shower, I hear our song, and I sing with you now. Better late than never, right?" He laughed, but it was a sad sound. "I talked to the counselor about pride, about how it destroys things, about how something as beautiful as our marriage became broken because I couldn't admit I was wrong about something stupid." Daniel pulled out a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "I wrote you a letter. I've written you hundreds now, but this one is special. It's my promise to you." He unfolded it and read aloud. "Dear Sarah, I promise to never let pride control me again. I promise to apologize quickly and love freely. I promise to help others avoid my mistakes. I promise to honor your memory by being the man you deserved me to be when you were alive. I promise to spread awareness about asthma so no one else loses someone they love the way I lost you. I promise to remember that love is more important than being right. And I promise to never, ever take for granted the people I love, because we never know which moment will be our last with them. I love you. I will always love you. And I'm sorry I didn't tell you that enough when you were here to hear it. Your husband, Daniel." He refolded the letter and placed it under the roses. "People tell me I need to forgive myself," he said quietly. "I don't know if I ever will, but I'm trying to do better, to be better, to make sure your death wasn't completely meaningless." He stood up slowly, his knees stiff from sitting. "I'll come back next month, I promise. And Sarah?" He touched the headstone one last time. "If I could do it all over again, I would eat that bread with a smile and tell you it was perfect. Because it was perfect. Because you made it. That's all that mattered." As Daniel walked away from the cemetery, he thought about the man he used to be. The man who let pride dictate his actions, who thought being right was more important than being kind. That man had died the same night Sarah did. Now, he was trying to become someone new, someone who had learned too late that pride is the most expensive thing you can own. It costs nothing to acquire, but everything to maintain. And for Daniel Williams, the price of his pride was a price he would pay for the rest of his life. The loss of the woman who had loved him despite all his flaws, the woman who had tried one last time to reach out to him, and the woman he had pushed away for the very last time. This story is based on true events. Asthma is a serious medical condition that requires immediate attention during attacks. If you or someone you love has asthma, please ensure emergency inhalers are always accessible and never ignore someone who is trying to tell you they cannot breathe. More importantly, this story is a reminder that pride destroys relationships. Arguments in marriage are normal, but prolonged silence and stubbornness can have consequences we never imagine. Always choose love over pride. Always choose communication over silence. Always choose kindness over being right. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. Make sure the people you love know it today.